Today we're diving into IT Workplace. It's a fictional story by N. Manny that, like, throws you right into that world.
Yeah.
So, like...
We're going to be looking at the software engineer named Chris.
Okay.
And his story. It's really relatable for anyone in tech, really.
So Chris, he gets this dream job, right? In-stream systems.
Right.
They're like the hot new thing, and they're trying to, like, revolutionize insurance with this Project Insight.
Okay.
But we all know dream jobs, they often come with, like, baggage.
Yeah, there's always a catch, right?
Always a catch.
Always a catch.
So, Chapter 1, Burnout, the Never-Ending Battle. It's like the title says it all.
It really is. I mean, Chris goes from, excited, ready to take on the world to just totally fried.
It's like that classic tech burnout story.
Classic. Happens all the time.
It's like, and it's not even just like the crazy deadlines or like no support. It's this whole environment,
The pressure. Oh, the pressure in those environments. It gets to you, you know?
Pressure.
It's like they glorify overworking. You're supposed to be hustling all the time.
Oh, yeah. Hustle culture.
And it's insidious. It sneaks up on you. By the time you realize you're burnt out, it's almost too late.
Yeah, you're already there. And then there's that part in the book where Chris's colleague, he's been like pulling all-nighters.
Oh, no.
And he has like a heart attack.
It's a wake-up call. It shows you that this always-on mentality, it has real consequences.
Real consequences. So, like, what do you even do about it? Because take a break. I mean, that only goes so far.
Take a break? What does that even mean in that environment? You come back to more work.
Right. So, like, what are some,
You need actual strategies. And this book, it gives you those strategies. Like Chris, he figures out a way to deal with those crazy demands. He doesn't just say yes to everything. He uses data, timelines.
He pushes back.
He pushes back. But he does it in a way that shows he's looking out for the project, not just complaining.
Which is tough. Especially when you're starting out and you're trying to prove yourself.
You want to be a team player. But you also need to stand up for yourself.
Advocate for yourself. Okay, so advocating for yourself, that's like a key takeaway here.
Definitely. And part of that is setting boundaries.
Okay.
Saying no sometimes. Making it clear that your well-being matters.
Because you can't, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
So Chris is like kind of getting a handle on this burnout thing. But then there's like the people.
Oh, the people.
Chapter 2, People, the Real Challenge.
That's where the book gets really interesting. You meet Tara, the queen of knowledge hoarding.
Oh, we've all worked with the Tara.
She's been at InStream forever, knows everything, but good luck getting any information out of her.
And then there's Mark.
Oh, Mark.
Mr. Office Politician.
Always angling for that promotion. Ready to throw you under the bus if it gets him ahead. So good. But I love how the book, it doesn't just present these characters like caricatures, right? Like you understand why they act the way they do.
Like with Tara, it turns out she's terrified of being replaced, passed over for promotions, threatened by the new talent. So she holds on to information as a way to feel valuable.
Okay, that's kind of sad.
It is, but it doesn't make it any easier to work with her.
So how does Chris deal with her?
He tries to understand where she's coming from. Doesn't go in there like accusing her of hoarding information. He tries to build a rapport, show her that he values her experience.
That's actually really smart.
It's about empathy, Sometimes those difficult colleagues, they're dealing with their own stuff.
It's a good reminder, right?
For sure. Now, Mark, that's a different story. He's just wired for that cutthroat corporate climb.
Yeah, some people are just like that.
They are. But even there, Chris finds ways to navigate the situation without getting pulled into the drama.
Like that time, Mark tries to, steal credit for Chris's code. Right in front of everyone. Brutal. But what does Chris do? He calmly pulls up the version history, shows everyone who actually did the work.
Boom. Mic drop.
It's a good lesson, Document your work, always. Especially in those environments where credit is, currency.
Document.
Exactly. And while those situations are frustrating, the book stresses the importance of choosing your battles. You can't engage in every little conflict. Sometimes the best approach is to document, protect yourself, and just focus on doing good work.
Focus on your work.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got Tara, we've got Mark, and then there's Jim, Chris's boss, who, let's just say he's a bit of a stress case.
Jim is a whole other level of challenging.
Oh, yeah.
He's a perfect example of how a leader's energy, good or bad, can really affect the whole team.
And in Jim's case, it's not exactly positive.
No, not at all. That constant stress, the negativity, it starts to wear on Chris. Adds another layer of complexity to his already crazy work life.
So it's like, even if you're nailing your own tasks, setting boundaries, you're still operating within this larger system.
Within that system, yeah. And that system, including the people, the culture, it all has an impact.
So the question is, how do you stay, like, sane and productive and, dare I say, happy in an environment like that?
That's the million-dollar question.
It really is.
And it's one we're going to explore more as we dig deeper into IT workplace. Because in the next chapter, Chris, he starts to realize just how important mental well-being really is.
Oh, it's a game changer. So we left off with Chris realizing that, like, his mental well-being, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, chapter 3, taking care of mental well-being. It's like the book is saying, okay, we've thrown all this stuff at you. Now let's talk about how to actually survive it.
Right. Because it's not just about, like, setting boundaries at work. It's about taking care of yourself, like, as a human.
Exactly. And Chris is really struggling at this point. No recognition at work, the isolation of remote work, and Tara. Don't even get me started on Tara.
Tara, she's like a walking stress ball.
It's a lot for anyone to handle. And the thing is, at first, Chris is loving the whole remote work thing.
Who wouldn't?
Right. No commute, you can work in your PJs. It sounds idyllic, but then it's like the boundaries start to disappear.
Yeah, he's always on.
Always on. Expected to answer emails at all hours. The pressure's mounting. It's a recipe for disaster.
And the book does not shy away from showing, like, the real toll it takes on Chris.
No, it doesn't. He's irritable, can't sleep. That graphic novel he was working on, totally abandoned.
It's like all the joy gets sucked out.
And that's the thing about burnout. It's not just about feeling tired. It affects everything.
Yeah.
Your mood, your relationships, your creativity.
So what's the antidote? What does Chris do to, like, pull himself out of this nosedive?
Well, he stumbles upon this whole mindfulness thing.
Mindfulness. Okay, I have to admit, when I first heard about mindfulness, I was like, yeah.
Right. Another buzzword.
Totally. But the book actually does a good job of making it practical.
It's not about chanting or incense or whatever. It's about, like, paying attention to the present moment. Like, Chris, he starts with just a few minutes of meditation each morning.
Just breathing.
Just focusing on his breath. And then he starts to use those same techniques throughout the day. Like, there's this scene where he's about to send this really angry email.
Oh, we've all been there.
Right. But then he stops, he takes a few deep breaths, and he realizes this isn't going to help anything.
Mindfulness for Email Sanity. That's a book I'd read.
Seriously. And he starts journaling, too.
I'm a big believer in journaling. Like, all the stuff you can't say out loud, you could just, like, brain dump it onto the page.
It's therapeutic. And for Chris, it becomes this way to process all the stress and anxiety he's feeling. He gets it out of his head and onto paper.
So, mindfulness, journaling, what else? Because we're all looking for that magic formula, right?
I know. Well, Chris, he also starts reconnecting with some of the things he used to love. Like, remember how he used to sketch?
Oh, yeah. He was working on that graphic novel. It was like his passion project.
Exactly. And he totally let it go. But then he starts drawing again. And it's like this whole other side of him reemerges.
It's like the book is reminding us that we're not just machines. We need those creative outlets, those things that light us up.
Absolutely. It's about finding joy and fulfillment outside of work.
Yeah.
And that actually makes us better at our jobs, more engaged, more creative.
So Chris is meditating, he's journaling, he's sketching. He's like a self-care machine.
Right. He's got this whole toolkit now. And that's where the book gets really interesting because it's like, okay, he's taking care of himself, but what about the environment he's in?
Because that hasn't magically changed.
Exactly. And that's where chapter 4 comes in. Physical health in a sedentary job. It's like the book is saying, okay, we've covered the mental game. Now let's talk about the physical toll this work takes on us.
This is my jam.
Yeah.
I mean, I spend way too much time sitting at a desk. Give me all the tips.
Well, get ready to be inspired because Chris basically becomes a workplace wellness guru.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Like he starts with a standing desk.
Oh, I've been thinking about getting one of those.
Game changer.
Right.
Yeah.
You start taking care of yourself and it inspires other people to do the same.
It's true. And it's not just the standing desk. Chris, he's all about micro movements throughout the day. Stretching every hour, taking the stairs, even using a stability ball as a chair for a while.
Okay, I have to try that stability ball thing.
It's surprisingly effective. It's about finding those little ways to move your body, even if you're stuck at a desk most of the day.
So it's like small changes can make a big difference.
Exactly. But let's be real, sometimes you need more than just micro movements, you know? Sometimes you need to actually break a sweat.
Okay, Spill. What's Chris's workout routine?
You might be surprised. It's not some crazy CrossFit regimen or anything.
Don't keep me in suspense.
He starts walking.
Walking.
Walking. He starts with these evening walks around his neighborhood just to clear his head. And then those walks, they become longer, more intentional. He's exploring parks, trails. It becomes this whole meditative experience.
There's something so grounding about walking, you know? It's like
Mhm.
you're literally moving your body through space, processing your thoughts, connecting with nature.
The book calls it active rest, which I love. It's not about pushing yourself to the limit. It's about finding an activity that allows your mind to wander, your body to move, your stress to just kind of melt away.
Okay, so Chris has got the self-care thing down. He's basically a wellness warrior.
Mm.
But what about in-string systems?
What about it?
Has it magically transformed into this like utopia of work-life balance and employee well-being?
Not quite. And that's where things get really interesting in chapter 5. Corporate myths exposed. Because Chris, he starts to see through the facade. He realizes that a lot of the stuff he's been told about corporate life, the truths, they're actually just myths designed to keep employees working harder and longer.
Ooh, juicy. Lay it on me. What myths are we busting,
That's it.
Teddy?
Ready for this? We're a family.
Ugh, that one makes me cringe every time I hear it.
Right, and in Stream, they eat it up. They use that whole family thing to justify everything. Long hours, weekend work, taking on projects that are totally outside your job description.
It's like emotional manipulation almost.
Totally. But then something happens that completely exposes how fake it all is.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What happens?
Layoffs. A whole wave of them.
Ouch.
And it's brutal. People who've been there for years, who've given everything to this company, they're suddenly shown the door, and that whole family narrative, it vanishes.
Looks like they never even said it.
Exactly. And Chris, he sees this happening, and he starts to question everything.
It's like the scales fall from his eyes.
Totally. And it's not just the family myth. He starts to see through other corporate lies, like multitasking.
Oh, multitasking.
Yeah.
The art of doing 5 things poorly at the same time.
Right. And in Stream, like so many tech companies, they glorify multitasking. It's like a badge of honor.
Oh, you can juggle 10 projects at once. You must be a rock star.
Exactly. But as Chris observes, all that multitasking, it actually leads to more mistakes, more burnout, and lower quality work overall.
It's like that saying, if you want something done right, give it to a busy person.
So true. The book makes a really strong case for single tasking, for giving your full attention to one thing at a time. Not only does it improve the quality of your work, it also reduces stress and makes you more efficient in the long run.
Okay, I'm sold. Single tasking it is. What else does IT workplace debunk?
Oh, they go after the myth of work-life balance, too.
Because that's a thing, right?
Yeah, sure. In a perfect world, maybe. But at InStream, that concept is basically non-existent. They might say they value work-life balance, but the expectation is that you're always available.
Always tethered to your phone, checking emails at all hours.
Exactly. And it takes a toll. Chris, his sleep suffers, his relationships suffer, he's constantly stressed out.
It's like you're never really off the clock.
Right. But here's the thing. The book offers a solution. It encourages people to reclaim their time, to set firm boundaries between work and life.
Okay, easier said than done, right? Especially when you have a boss who's emailing you at all hours.
It definitely takes effort. But what Chris realizes is that those boundaries, they're crucial not just for his well-being, but for his productivity too. He starts small, like setting specific times to check work email and sticking to them. And it's not easy at first, but he persists.
And does InStream suddenly become this, like, bastion of work-life balance?
Not exactly. There are definitely some raised eyebrows and subtle digs about his commitment. But what Chris finds is that when you consistently show up, you do good work, and you advocate for yourself respectfully, people adjust.
It's about setting that example, right?
Yeah.
Showing people that it's possible to be successful without sacrificing your entire life.
Exactly. And that ties into another big one the book tackles, the myth of loyalty.
Oh, loyalty. We saw how that played out with the layoffs.
Right. We're all family until it's time to cut costs. The book really drives home the point that for a lot of companies, loyalty is a one-way street. They're loyal to the bottom line, not to their employees.
That's a tough reality to face.
It is. But the book encourages people to be smart, to be strategic about their careers,
Advocate for yourself.
advocate for yourself, because ultimately you are your own best advocate.
It's like that old saying, put your own oxygen mask on first.
Sure.
You can't show up for anyone else if you're completely depleted.
Exactly. And sometimes that means making a tough decision, like moving on to a new opportunity.
Which is exactly what Chris does in the final chapter. But before we get to that, I'm curious, out of all these corporate myths we've been dissecting, which one resonated with you the most?
That's a tough one. They're all so relatable in their own way, but I think for me, it's the myth of work-life balance. I've definitely fallen into that trap of feeling like I always need to be on, always available.
It's so easy to do, especially in today's hyper-connected world. But IT workplace, it's like it gives you permission to say, no, my time is valuable, and I'm allowed to have a life outside of work.
Exactly, and that's a powerful message.
It really is. So let's talk about Chris's big move. Chapter 6. Move ahead, the conclusion. Does he finally confront Jim? Demand that promotion?
Well, he doesn't exactly confront Jim, but he does make a pretty bold move. Remember that promotion he was supposed to get?
The one Jim kept dangling over his head.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Well, Jim finds yet another excuse to deny him the promotion. Something vague about needing more client-facing experience.
Of course he does. Classic corporate BS.
The worst. But here's where Chris's journey takes a really inspiring turn. Instead of getting discouraged, he decides to take control.
He starts looking for another job.
He does. He updates his resume, polishes his LinkedIn profile, and starts networking. And guess what? It doesn't take long for him to get noticed.
Because he's awesome.
Exactly. This other company, a company that's actually doing some really innovative work in a field Chris is passionate about, they reach out. And the role, it's like it was made for him.
Like the universe is like, okay, Chris, you've learned your lesson. Time to move on to bigger and better things.
Seriously. And the salary, significantly higher than what he's making at InStream.
Karma, baby.
Yeah.
So what does he do? He takes it.
He takes it. And the best part, the resignation scene, it's epic.
Okay, set the scene. How does it go down?
Chris walks into Jim's office, cool as a cucumber.
I love it. No drama, no big speeches.
None whatsoever. He calmly explains that he's accepted a position at another company and thanks Jim for the opportunity.
Short, sweet, to the point.
Exactly. And you know what's really interesting? Jim's reaction.
Let me guess. He freaks out.
Total freak out. Suddenly, Jim's full of apologies, promises of promotions, hints at future leadership roles.
Too little, too late.
It's a classic case of you don't know what you've got till it's gone.
It's like companies only value you when you're about to walk out the door.
It's sad but true. But for Chris, it's not about the money anymore or even the title. It's about respect. It's about doing work that matters, work that he's passionate about, in an environment that values him.
He chose himself.
He did. And that's what makes IT workplace such a powerful story. It's not just about surviving the corporate tech world. It's about thriving. It's about recognizing your own worth and having the courage to create a work life that aligns with your values and your aspirations.
And that's a message we can all get behind no matter what industry we're in. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this. What resonated with you most from Chris's story? What lessons can you apply to your own work life?
And how can you start prioritizing your well-being today?
Share your thoughts with us on social media using #TheDeepDive. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay curious, stay well, and keep diving deep.